Okay, it's 5:05 on Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Affordable Housing Commission to order. In attendance, we have myself, Michael Polano, Amy Hosier, Jen Miller, Fred Fenton, John Coughlin on the phone, Lori Walker, Anthony Basilio, and Jimmy Cordo. So I'll start by updating on the most recent appointments. So at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, Fred was appointed to the open regular seat that was vacated by Bill Belluzzi. And Jim Cordo, who had volunteered for both the McCulloch Committee and the Commission, was appointed to the alternate that Fred vacated. So a little bit of musical chairs, but we are back up to full strength, and very pleased to have Jim aboard.
There's 5 full members and 3 alternates. Is that correct?
There's John Coughlin's on the phone.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's 5 and 3.
Okay.
So for those of you who haven't met Jim, Jim is been in town for 8 years, I think you said?
Yeah, 8 or 9, yeah.
8 or 9?
Yep.
In there?
Yep.
Has a family here and is a developer, so he's going to bring some really valuable insights from that discussion to us. And just in case you don't know everybody, why don't we just go around and make sure we have the names exchanged.
Lori Walker.
I'm Jen Miller.
Amy Hosier.
Okay.
Anthony Basilio.
Fred Fenton.
Okay.
Okay, and Jen is the vice chair.
Okay.
All right. Let me just write the time down for the minutes. 5. So next up is public comment. We have no one here in the meeting hall, so if there's anyone on the phone that would like to make a comment, please introduce yourself. The lines are unmuted. John, could you say something so we know the lines are unmuted this time?
Yes. How are you?
Very good, and we hear you. So the lines are indeed open, which they weren't last month.
I got it working this time.
Okay, hearing none, close public comment, and on to approval of minutes for the last regular meeting of August 16th. So for motion to approve for discussion purposes.
I move.
Jamie?
Okay, second. I'm not seated.
You're not seated.
No, go ahead, Fred.
Fred, okay. So that's item 3. Me and Fred. Discussion. Okay, hearing none, I'll move the question. All in favor of approving the minutes of August 16th?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item 4, general updates. Other than the new members, don't have a lot. I would direct your attention to recent minutes from the Halls Road Committee and their updated FAQs. We'll talk more about that under item 8. And also, at the last Planning Commission, Mark Niebolt went and had an informal conversation, and there's some minutes on that there. I had a chat with Harold, and no revelations from what we already knew. It seems like they're close enough to starting a regulatory process, so they're opening the conversation with the land use boards. Okay. No other correspondence. Oh, a little bit of correspondence. Actually, Bill Belluzzi called me yesterday. And Bill has volunteered to be the liaison from the First Congregational Church to the McCulloch project. So we can have a channel into that community, which is a large one. It's valuable to have that. So it's nice to hear from our old friend Bill. Okay, Regional Housing Committee update, number 5. Don't have anything that's not going to be covered under item 7 and 8. So at the last RHC meeting, most of what happened there is Rivercog had prepared those toolkits for ADUs and for inclusionary zoning, which you have in your hands now for the last couple of weeks. So that was the upshot of that meeting. There's a meeting tomorrow which has been canceled, so I won't have an update at our next regular meeting. But they've already that regional committee has already been very useful. They've collated a lot of information from the Rivercog team has collated a lot of information from the 17 towns in the Lower Connecticut River Valley region, which has been very useful.
Can I just clarify one thing though? Sorry, this is just my brain's catching up with you. Bill, he's going to be on the building committee, or is just a liaison informally between
Just
the
informal
building
liaison.
committee and the church?
So
Okay.
we'll give his name to the committee as a contact for that community.
I'm sorry, who's Bill?
Bill Belluzzi, former member who was the former occupant of the seat you are now in.
Okay.
We must have just missed him, I guess. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, projects. McCulloch Open Space, the major one. Again, no change in direction from what we spoke about last time. Since our last exciting episode, the legal team has been able to go through all of the legal documents and deeds and such, and they have one of the major questions was what the state of those two building envelopes was. We know that they're laid out on the map. It was not clear whether or not they had been divided, whether there was one piece of land there upon which the two building envelopes had been described, or whether there were actually three. Because there were separate financial transactions, but there were not. But from looking at the actual deeds, they have not been divided. So the envelopes are still part of the open space. They have been described and captured in the conservancy easement, the conservation easement. And they have been specifically allowed to have housing put on them. So they've been defined, but they have not been divided. The upshot of that means there's going to be some more paperwork to do in order to get those divided before we can move the project and transfer anything to Habitat for Humanity. And there will have to be a town meeting convened to approve that.
Is Casella doing all that? Casella?
No, it's actually the town attorney, which is Sussman Shapiro and Mike Carey.
Who is it?
Mike Carey.
Mike. Oh, in New London?
Yeah, no one else. Yep.
Okay.
So that we know where we're headed, which is to have those divided and transferred to Habitat for Humanity. Now we know where we are, which is they have not been divided. So the legal folks and the land use folks can define the process that we're going to have to go through. The town is going to have to go through to do that.
I mean, last month, we were sort of in the same place, waiting for the attorneys to figure everything out, right?
Well, they have. So
They
actually,
have?
Yeah. Well, they haven't figured out the whole process, but they've done the review of all the documents, and now we can go to land use and say, okay, this is what we need to do.
So they can draw up two proposed deeds.
Yep. So now, at the end of this, there'll be two new deeds created, and the two lots will actually be divided and be separate properties from the open space.
So they have everything they need to draw up two deeds.
To start the process of it. So the next step is going to be now having done that research and knowing where we are, is to go to land use folks and lay out what the process is going to be. So we'll get Kim Groves in the loop now.
And then the deeds will have to be transferred to Habitat at some point.
Prior to September 2024. So most likely scenario is there's the annual town meeting in January, so I hope that everything can be put in order by then, so that we can go to the town meeting in January and keep that moving. The other moving part right now is that's going to influence the process is in Habitat for Humanity's court, and they're sorting out whether they want to go through an 830G process, which would streamline some of this, but is different from the process they normally use, or whether they're going to use their process. So That's in Sarah's court, and she's still working on that, and we'll have an update.
Remind me Sarah's last name?
Leffler.
Do we want to drive that at all, or no? Or do you want to leave that up to them entirely?
It's not ours to do. We've recommended. The lawyers, both the land use folks and the lawyers have recommended they go 830G in order to streamline the process. And they're sorting out how compatible it is with what they normally do and how much overhead it's going to be.
Yeah, that's what I...
Neither is a showstopper. It's a matter of just trying to optimize the process and speed and minimize the paperwork.
And remind me, at the town meeting, what will we request specifically that they vote on? Will there be a vote on that?
Yeah, for the town for town-owned land to change hands, the town has to approve it.
And the request would be to transfer it to Habitat?
I believe so, not sure.
How the language will be written?
We'll still have to sort that out in detail. Now we at least know what trajectory we're on.
Yeah.
We have a beginning and an end, and now we can figure out the pieces that connect those two dots. And it wasn't clear last month what state the envelopes were in, but now that's been clarified, which was a fair amount. I haven't seen it, but I've heard reference to the pile of papers that were involved. So, non-trivial what's been done. Steering committee will get stood up, if not at the October Board of Selectmen meeting. We still have, as I mentioned, Jim has volunteered and would fill that role of having someone with development expertise on the committee. We're still recruiting for folks with the community outreach and the grant administration experience that would round out that committee. So, moving along in the at small town pace, but moving along. Okay, that's 1 through 6. Okay, next up, development opportunities. So, thanks to Fred's and Jen's diligence, we had identified three tracts of properties, one on Kimmick, another cluster of contiguous properties, abutting properties that were just south of there, and then it was, help me, what number was it on Mile Creek Road?
120-1.
102.
102-1 or 120-1?
102.1.
Yeah.
What was the first one?
It's on Kimmick.
Okay.
Yeah, you have the package.
That's the one by Grandview?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Let me pull up my files on that. Yeah, 102.1. So I'll start with 102-1. Fred and I did some digging on GIS, and it turns out that while it's level, it's covered with environmentally sensitive, completely covered with environmentally sensitive.
Which one did we say, Kimmick?
102. No.
Oh, that's why it's...
Completely covered. So I sent out that overlay graphic that you saw.
Interesting.
It's like 1.8 acres.
Big piece.
Yeah, where was this? Where on Mile Creek was it again? I did look it up.
Can we show them?
Well, it's between,
Thank you. I did look at it.
where, Button Ball comes in and,
by McNair.
Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just west of where Button Ball
Environmental.
Yep.
is in.
Oh, sensitive.
Yeah.
But it's
Not hazardous, yeah. So don't be stressed.
covered with every square inch of it is covered with environmentally sensitive
Vegetation.
areas.
You mean thank you.
And actually pulled down, if anybody's interested, I needed to know what medium fen was, so I have a little field guide to environmentally sensitive land. I'm happy to send it out to you.
And the address is Mile Creek, right? It's Mile Creek property?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yep. So, and you have in the packet I sent out a couple of weeks ago, there's a graphic in there with all the overlaid sensitivity, but it is 100% covered with it.
I didn't see the sensitivity overlay. I just saw that picture.
Yeah,
I'll pull it up on my computer again.
And it'd be interesting to walk in there and see what's what. I mean, there are some, it could be buildable, I'm not sure, but it would certainly be a lot of, not low-hanging fruit. There'd be a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm not sure inland, I'm not sure we clear inland wetlands based on the.
Is there some grades? It seems to be some elevational.
No, the topo's pretty little bit.
Environmentally sensitive meaning wetlands or?
Wetlands?
Some wetlands, you see, yeah.
Yep.
There's some elevation, 10, maybe more feet.
Yeah, in the center here. Yeah.
So that's the bad news. The good news is that the two parcels up near the fire station on the Post Road look promising. And in fact, the northern, so I just,
do you need that?
I had
No, this one I did see. Yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, Roger Blake.
Thank you.
yes, near,
It's-
across the street,
Behind the fire station, right? Yep, yeah.
behind the fire station.
Yep.
So, had a meeting with Tim about a variety of issues and just ran those maps by him and let him know they were out there. And he said that his interest was piqued as well, and he said our next stop would be with the land use folks to figure out how to sort it out. And while I was there, I swung by to see Eric Knapp, and Eric said, just need to get a perk is the next step. So, and actually Eric connected me with the person who handles the records up there, and as it turns out, the northern of those properties actually has a raised former home on it, and has a decommissioned well and septic system on it already.
Wow.
So there were problems with the septic prior to it being decommissioned, but in any case, at some point in an indeterminate history, there was actually a residence on it with well and septic.
Can I see that again, if you don't mind?
Yeah, it's an extra, I made extra copies.
Thank you. I thought it was just one.
And Jim, there's the overlay. So that blue square is the property, and that's all the environmentally sensitive stuff that's overlaid on it. So it's covered.
Yeah.
So low probability there, but looks higher probability on the other ones. So the next step would be for, I think, our commission to come up with a proposal to go to the Board of Selectmen, try and get some funds to do the perk testing and take the next steps on this. So that's really the discussion point for tonight. And so now you know everything. Anything I missed, Fred, from your perspective?
No?
And the parcels are owned by the city.
Yeah.
So, and they would anticipate selling them. We don't know.
We don't know. We'll need to make a proposal.
We should tell them to sell them, and then they can pay for all the perking and take it out of the sale price.
Well, I think we want to leave the door open
anything.
to donating it.
Yeah, donate, well, better yet.
How many parcels were there together? Was it?
That southern cluster was, I think, 6 of them. Yeah, 5 or 6.
6.
And altogether, they add up to less than half an acre, right?
No, 7.
So these they look like little 25-foot stalls.
Yeah.
So many sentences, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yep, the addresses are on the now.
And they're zone compliant. One of them must be grandfathered in, right? And the other one, so you can build on them? They're buildable lots. They meet the zoning requirements?
We don't know yet.
We don't know.
Right. And so that's why we go, the next step to establish that would be to
Look into
get
it.
some money, get the engineer out there, and do the soil and water work that would.
I do believe they were zoned RU20, and I totaled that both of them did have 20,000 square feet.
So it's just about half acre.
Even at .46. Mhm.
After totaling all those slivers together.
Yes.
Yeah, if all of those were merged, it would merge into a half acre.
So I think I asked before, maybe you know, what does a perk test cost?
It depends what the soil's like, but not much.
No.
Not much.
No. I mean,
Dig some holes, you plant some pipes, and
Dig some
Yeah.
holes and pour some water in.
yeah, I mean, I've done them myself before and just had them witnessed, but that didn't cost anything. But I mean, for this, you definitely we don't want to do it. Or, you know, we don't want someone else to do it. It's cheap, that's for sure.
Right.
I think the McCulloch perks were, I may have that completely wrong, I once said they were $1,500 to do 2 sets of them.
Oh my God.
So, no, it's
How
not.
much?
1,500, I think, 1,800, like that.
It's the equipment.
Well, they did like
They did a lot of holes.
Right.
Cheap as it,
That was over
They
6
did, like,
acres, that was
6
2
on
lots,
each site,
over 6
on
acres,
3
yeah,
acres.
so it's not gonna be,
it's the machine time, really. that
The
you're-
machine cost, they gotta bring a machine.
Just,
in.
just to trailer anything around these days is $500.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just to bring anything anywhere. So,
all right, so,
So we want to make a proposal to go to the Board of Selectmen and,
yeah, so our next step would be to write up a proposal, get an estimate on what the perk testing would take.
just for that one lot, or do you want to do?
I think we need to do both
If you're out
because
there.
the other one is, the last, I can't read it, the record's illegible, but according to the computer record that was pulled up by Pat, she said that there were problems with the former septic system on that northern, on Kimmick.
Yeah, I mean.
And it's not
we went
clear
up
how
there,
old-
There's houses right.
There what?
There's houses right next to.
Right next to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's-
so right there,
So I think
probability.
It's a good risk.
Yeah, yeah.
good risk.
and the expectation, I know this is early to speculate, but the idea would be to some sort of process like the McCulloch, or similar to, but streamlined with less steps, of course, have a small, some sort of housing built there by another entity, not the town.
Based on the feedback we got from the
Right.
session, we would,
Yeah.
okay, I would say that's the most likely scenario.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay.
And the zone there is single family, or can you do multi-family, like a duplex?
Yes, are you 20, or are you 40? I can pull up.
Are you 20?
Are you 20? That's half acre zoning.
Half acre zone. And for single family, or can you do duplex?
Are you a single?
Unless someone files and wants to put.
Yeah, and if it's not impossible that we could go in under affordable provisions and do some more, but next step would be, let's see what the land will carry.
Yeah, you can't do anything up till then, so.
So a proposal needs to be drawn to present to the Board of
Selectmen, and if we can get that done in the next 2 weeks, then we can put it on the agenda for, I think
Just about, so yeah, how's that?
it'll be the first Monday in October, which is a Monday, so that'll be a week from next Monday.
So would you like one of us to do it? Would you like to do it? How does that go?
I am not going to be accessible for next week, so I'm going to be,
Okay,
for
and
somebody else to just,
can it be fairly simple?
I think
Oh, it's
simpler,
very simple.
the
Simpler the
simpler the
better.
better.
Does it need to have like like an estimate?
I would say, if we're going to ask for money, we should have an estimate of what it's going to be, and
And do you?
don't undershoot.
In order to get an estimate, is it okay just to call people, or how do you, there's some no-nos?
You mean to do the perk test?
In order to get it.
Yeah.
There's a town engineer that you could use as a first stop.
He would give an estimate.
He would give an estimate, correct.
And
So,
anyone that has a contract with a public entity, municipality, or the state, or whatever, contracts, it's automatically procured. You can just piggyback on it, whatever the price is, as long as they meet the publicly procured contract, you're good to go. So ask the town engineer if he's aware of anyone in town, like the town might have an excavator.
actually, the town engineer, I think, could
Town
be
engineer,
the vendor.
that's it, ask the town, ask the town engineer, he'll guide you. Try to get someone publicly procured or.
But this would just be an estimate.
An estimate, yeah.
And what the town engineer would be fine, right? You could give a range and.
Yeah, just to ballpark it so that we can go to the Board of Selectmen, we can show them the maps, tell them what we have in mind, So it would be, one pager tops,
And who is the town engineer?
where we're just I don't have his name off the top of my head, but
Oh,
We can get a.
Eric would know.
Yeah.
there is one.
There is one.
Yeah.
And Tom, whose name is, also name escaped me, was retired, so there's a new town engineer.
Yeah, I don't know who that is either, yeah. I'm trying
So-
Yep.
But if we're all in agreement, then I'll look for somebody to take point on just coming up with a one-pager, have all I think that map, it's one map that identifies the addresses and the properties.
Great, yep,
We'll get it done.
yep.
And tell them what we have in mind.
Yep, I'll do it.
Jen, would you like to
Yeah.
work together on it?
Yeah, let's try to-
Okay. All right.
Sounds good. I'll be back on the grid a week from Friday.
Okay.
So then we give it to you? What do we do with it?
Yeah, in the meantime, what I'll do is put us on if you guys, I don't think we need to
I'm
know
available
anything,
If you need,
so I'll send a note to Tim to put us on the agenda for Monday, October 1st.
It's Monday, October 2nd.
2nd. 28th is Thursday, yep.
And those are, I did look at them on a map to see where they were, but the topography I did not look at. They're relatively, they're not like cliff faces. I mean, I know where that is, but
There's a little terrain, but,
just to, I mean, we don't have to get into it now, but just to locate the perk holes, so we're perking
yeah.
where we would,
I'll let you have a look at this.
town engineer can probably direct you, or Jen is her name, right?
Yeah.
Jen?
On that, but that will definitely, they would definitely want to perk the spots where the septic would likely go. But it's probably a little premature now, but.
Yeah, the town will probably tell you where they are.
So you can see,
Yeah,
for that northern property, you can see there's a little dip on the southern.
So this is the one that's already one chunk. The other ones are all little
They're all
slices.
separate, yep. So you can see on that one that there's,
Down. Oh, this is a touch screen?
yeah.
A ThinkPad with a touch screen?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Ah, is this new?
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
I got a ridiculous deal on it, so I'll send you the outlet site.
That's sweet.
Okay, so we're all in agreement, we're gonna move forward on that. That was the main decision point for tonight, is to put a proposal together, ask for some money, do the perks, and then we'll take it from there.
I think it's a great idea.
I'm really happy this, yielded an opportunity or two. Hope it works out, really do.
Is she okay?
Yeah, she had to take a call.
Oh.
And that was the only yield from that sieve of town-owned properties. Okay. Huh.
Yeah, I looked, Jen got a list of the tax lien properties, and I looked at all of them. It didn't seem like any were about to go into foreclosure. You know, relatively small amounts on all of them, so.
This will be a good, I think this will be a good exercise, and if we can come up with a way, something reproducible, so that when these opportunities come up, we know what to do, and it's been, get a win.
If nothing else, it'll show the town like, hey, remember you own these.
Yeah.
And you can harvest these and at least
Do something good
with them, rather than zero.
Yep.
I mean, there were some other optimal properties that, the town owns, but it seemed like the easiest ones to start looking for. And if, boom, you're in the color and this, and the town gets used to it, and go after the less likely ones, I suppose.
Yep. Good. Great.
Okay. So that's a go. A note here. Proposal. And
She feeling ill?
Yeah, that's why I said it. I knew something was
oh,
going
it's
on.
Amy.
Yeah, I didn't mean to be too obvious about it. Yeah, thanks, Jen. I saw
a
that.
little lightheaded, and feels like she's gonna pass out. She's dehydrated.
not much joy.
All right, why don't we take a 5-minute break here? John, we're going to take a 5-minute break and then pick up on the policy and regulatory piece.
I'm still here.
Yep. Okay, we are on item number 8. Number 1, accessory dwelling unit. So, you did get the notes I sent out, right, on the policy and regulatory stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with ADUs. ADUs have been a topic of discussion for over a year now. We had some suggestions from the Rivercog staff on which way to go. Since then, Amy's done a bunch of background research, and Rivercog did more research and came out with that survey of the local towns. And that body of thinking and work is at the point where we have some draft proposed changes to the current ADU regs. Just to remind you the background on this, back in 2021, the General Assembly passed Public Act 29-21, which actually established ADUs as of right in all of the 169 towns, unless the town opted out. And mine did opt out, mostly driven by the concerns about the R10 and R15s down in the beach area not really being amenable. But they did express openness to relaxing the regulations that we have, which are among the most, if not the most, I haven't looked at all 169, but are among the most restrictive in the state. So I think there's a lot of room to make a proposal here. So again, the rationale for change here is we have highly restrictive regulations. Our affordable housing plan was adopted last year, and the plan of conservation and development that was also adopted in 21 into 22 are all calling for more ADUs as a means to accommodate the smaller households of seniors. Increased availability of rentals, provide income opportunities for some seniors that may be aging out in their current oversized homes. And it means one of the key strategies that we outlined in a town that has not a lot of land, as we're finding out every time we go to look, that isn't ledge or environmentally sensitive, to be able to reuse existing footprint to create more housing opportunities is going to be one of our best bets. So here we are. You guys, you have the proposal. I put a grid at the top of it there that kind of give a before and after shot of what we'd be looking at. So with that, I will open it.
So, we have, there's a proposal.
What are you looking for?
Okay.
But tell us what you're looking for so we know.
Lime food truck garden.
That's going to be in the mezzanine conference room, which is...
We don't usually use it here in the townhouse. Okay. Mezzanine conference room.
Right, so if you go to the top of the stairs and that side of the building, one level up.
Thank you.
You'll find it. No problem. So you've done a lot of work behind this, and you have the creds and the credentials in planning. So I'll give you first dibs on the commentary.
Still. We did, Michael and I did some additional calling, how many months ago? 6 months ago or so? Of towns in the region. And most everyone's utilized ADUs, and they've done it pretty successfully. It's easier perhaps in a town like Old Saybrook, where they have downtown, they have 2-story and 3-story buildings, and there's units in those. And there seems to be a desire in their communities to have that option, to augment income or whatever. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
anyway, ADUs are being used, and I wish, I don't have
Do you have this document?
the material with me. I don't have it right here, I don't think. Okay, thanks. So this is, I'm sorry, I'm just,
It's okay.
Your head.
Yeah, it's not the ideal time for you to.
No, that's good. So I'll pick it up. And that proposal, so that first set of tables, Jim, do you have it?
I did look at it, I don't have it in front of me. I'll look on it, it's okay.
and, well, Jen doesn't have
I'm
it.
okay,
You have it?
I've read it.
Just, I'll look at it quick.
Sure.
Special permit.
So that first set of tables, the current regs allow for internal ADUs as a special permit process, so they're not allowed by default. It's a special permit only in RU 40 and RU 80, and everything else it's not permitted in every other zone. So there's that one little corner of our
Thank you.
zone districts, which actually is the biggest area in town. So the proposal would be to open up most of the residential districts and rural residential districts for internal, attached, and detached to be either as of right, and then in the smaller zones you can see a gradient of bringing in detached as a special permit process. So really lowering the bar across the board to essentially have ADUs be an administrative process for RU 80 and 40 and 20 for attached and internal, and it'd be a special permit for the balance of the grid.
Detached.
Yeah. Michael, are there any conditions, provisions, like restricted number of bedrooms, size of ADU?
No.
So you can read through those would be based on the current regs with the modifications that are proposed below it. So there's not a maximum of bedrooms, but there is maximum living space, a proposal to increase the maximum living space to 1,000 square feet or 30% of the current footprint from the current 800 square feet or 25%. Consider allowing ADUs on all levels, including the basement and above the second story. Right now, it's only limited to ground and second floor. Reduce the parking requirement to one space from two.
Drink.
Thank you, Doctor.
There's a restriction on alterations, and actually our former land use officer brought it up. It's a huge loophole. So what it basically says is you can't do a modification of the home to accommodate an internal ADU. But there's nothing to stop someone from putting an addition on and then going back and afterwards as a subsequently to apply for it as an ADU. So there's no.
What do you mean? So
The current regulation. I sent the whole packet of all of our zoning regulations, which is an interesting read if you're having some bad insomnia. But currently, there's a provision in the ADU regs that says that you cannot make modifications to the structure in order to accommodate an ADU.
Right.
Okay, but there's nothing that says you can't do an as-of-right addition,
right.
and then go back and apply for that space to be an ADU.
Oh.
So it's a wording.
So it's an ineffective.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little impediment. I mean, not everyone will be so clever, or you know.
Yep.
Or be that strategic in their thinking.
Right.
They're going to put it. They're going to put out $80,000 and hope they get.
Right.
No.
I've got a workaround.
So there's also dropping the restriction on currently non-conforming properties, which are locked out of the process altogether. And then the last thing is something to discuss too, which is potentially to further expand either the footprint of as of right or relaxation of the regs if the owner is willing to deed restrict the property for affordable. So add some incentive in there. So what we're looking for at this point, we've done a fair amount of research. We've been helped a lot by RiverCog. We have a draft framework to actually make a proposal to zoning. I think we're at a juncture now where we should fish or cut bait and say, okay, we're gonna write this or something similar to it up, and then take it to zoning as a proposal.
Yeah. So one question I have is, we have the bones here. I mean, can you present it to zoning sort of like this, or does it need to be?
It doesn't need to be fully legal.
We hereby modify section blah 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 to be amended. You don't need to do that to take it to zoning.
We don't need to take it at some point if it was going to be proposed for adoption.
Yes.
To actually enter the zoning regulations, it would have to be in that state.
And who does that?
Zoning, they would either kick it back to us and we'd engage an attorney to write it up.
Right. Okay.
So I think the next step would be to write a proposal that would have these concepts in, even if they were not fully written up in the language of the zoning regulation.
Yeah, sort of a from-to thing like you did with the grid.
Yep.
And then, right?
And then they would have an opportunity to opine on the suitability and my expectation would be that there would be some iteration after that conversation. But I think we're at a point now, I don't know what else we need to know in order to go to zoning and say, when zoning originally decided they wanted to opt out, we did have a conversation with them, and they were open to. It was not seen as being hard set on retaining the current regulations. It was more not accepting the blanket as of right from the state. There was recognition on the part of the then land use and the chair of zoning that something new.
So we would be ultimately the applicant. We'd be playing that role.
Yeah, for the town. The town is the applicant to zoning when that happens. And we would represent the town on that. Zoning can do it themselves.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, they just didn't take it up after the regs were passed. They just chose not to. They just said we opt out. That's it. Case closed. Move on.
And just reverted to the.
So we would
They didn't
just
have
issue a
any
report to them, and they could develop it internally.
Yeah, we would
Attorney or whatever they want.
take these bones, put some flesh on them.
Yeah.
Think about the concept of the incentives and whether we wanted to introduce that into the thinking.
Yeah. So who would be the, I guess you would be applying to your own household? Or
Yeah.
how would that, who, would the applicant be the new tenant in that, you know what I mean? How would that,
Applicant for
this, so say there's a new ADU built.
would be the current owner.
So the inhabitant of that unit applies to itself? Like how is it screened? How is it qualified if it's affordable?
What we're looking at is changing the zoning regulations.
Yeah.
So
Encourage develop more.
So that if a homeowner wanted to convert some of their footprint to an accessory dwelling, an accessory apartment. Actually, I'm going to start using the language accessory apartment because there's a big section on accessory uses. Okay, and there's a very specific section on accessory apartments. So if a current residential owner wanted to modify some of their existing structure as an accessory apartment, they have to go through a special permit process right now to do that. Come up with a plan, go to zoning, have a public hearing, and be subject to the.
Or it could be multi-use. I mean, we have friends that actually have an ADU, and it's part of a separate building, freestanding building, with a commercial garage. And they use it for storage and everything. So there's all sorts of configurations, and people can apply, but they don't have the right to do it.
There's two applicants here. So one would be that us representing the town to go to zoning and to get the regulations changed.
Right.
Which would change the process that homeowners
Correct.
would use to apply to actually create an accessory apartment.
My question is specific to this other, the further expansion of as-of-right incentive for qualified, restricted, affordable apartments. How does the affordable part come into the ADU?
So we would encode it into the regulation. So our proposal would include a section of the regulation that says, if the applicant that wants to create the accessory unit deed restricts it as affordable,
It being the ADU?
the ADU. So the deed would have a restriction on it that for decades, it would only be rented to income qualified occupants.
So that's my question. Who's screening the income qualified occupants? Is it the homeowner?
Homeowner.
Okay.
And we would likely have to have some process where they would have, where there would have to be some periodic recertification of it.
Right.
Yep.
And didn't
Voluntary.
It'll be in the deed too, yep.
Didn't Lime do something similar where they had an incentive for, or they were going to, I don't know if they ever did, they did a survey of Lime residences where if they had a frog or a room over the garage or something like that, they had surveyed them to see if they would be willing to take some sort of incentive on their taxes in order to create an affordable ADU. I don't know if they ever followed through with that.
They did, and they got
zero
response. Although
Yeah,
from my conversations up at the
they
Regional
tried.
Housing Commission, the Regional Housing Committee that Rivercog sponsors, Middlefield had a diametrically opposite response. They had a big response to relaxing their ADUs.
So if someone creates an ADU and they designate it affordable, what's the advantage to them?
Income?
No, but I mean, you can rent it for whatever income you want.
So the incentive would be that if they made it affordable, perhaps they could get an ADU into a footprint that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get into if we relaxed the minimum square footage requirement, for example.
Because it's qualified.
Because it's qualified.
But conversely, you could still build an ADU that doesn't have to, that meets code currently and rent it at market. You're not prohibited from doing that.
Right,
This is-
correct.
So it would just give you an,
Right.
The deed restriction is,
yeah,
that'd be
that's a high bar.
That's a high bar, yeah.
That's a high bar.
Yeah. Yep.
And for 40 years probably, where easily affordability is 40
I
years.
mean, that's tough.
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, essentially, it's a paper exercise, and
Is that
if it's
part of these proposed, is that in the proposed?
it is not in now, and I have it as a question
All right.
for discussion by this group: is do we want to explore that avenue? Here's another avenue to explore, and this was done by the town of Salisbury. So my understanding is the town of Old Lyme does not have good records on ADUs right now, because a lot of it is legacy. Since these regulations went in, not surprisingly, given how restrictive they are, there hasn't been a lot of activity. But there's the concept of amnesty. So if there are non-conforming accessory units out there, is to offer amnesty for coming above boards, and we could use perhaps affordability.
Right now in the town of Old Lyme, it's very hard to rent your house legally.
Yep.
Very hard.
Yep.
If you get caught, you're against zoning. Lyme is a different story.
Lyme is much more
easier to
permissive.
rent. So
Lyme-
that's a big difference.
Old Lyme is a distant outlier in the spectrum of
We used to have kids that would rent accessory rooms from the Lyme Art Association, but had to be quiet. Like you didn't want anybody to know. You never wanted to advertise it in the newspaper, because then the zoning commission would talk to it.
So if we're feeling like
Truly.
this is getting baked enough to bring it before zoning, I think that those are two concepts to explore, other than the sort of mathematical reducing footprint, making it a as-of-right administered process instead of a special permit. So, and going from 2 parking spaces to 1. Those are incremental relaxation of existing provisions. But the 2 new things to consider would be, at least, and you may have other ideas to consider, would be the incentives and amnesty.
I like the idea, I like the concept, and I said that before. The only two things for consideration that come to my mind is, one of them is, I do think you have to restrict the number of bedrooms. Bedrooms are always key to...
We're going to have to go back and read. I think there is a restriction. I can't quote it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think there is, because, you could put a lot of people into one bedroom, and people don't realize all of a sudden you could have 5 or 6 people living in a...
And septic is also, you're going to be an existing septic, so really
Septic, well, right.
the limitation on bedrooms is going to be from the water side.
Which is pretty low.
Right.
Like, I'd be shocked if you could get 2 bedrooms in any ADU based on existing septic.
Yeah,
without
and they already have septic fields
without
in.
without any change, and then you're... Yeah, and then what do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you'd be shocked.
I mean, it's
people
possible.
that abuse it.
Yeah.
3-person max occupancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there an occupancy?
Yeah, there is an occupancy cap.
3-person max occupancy.
These numbers are swimming around in my head. I
Yeah.
know it's there, I just don't know what it is.
And the only other thing I do like, which I like, the language in Ridgefield, you had the adopted regulations for inclusionary, is that...
That's next.
Well, I'll wait there,
That's
because
next.
I was going to combine one of the elements here in there, but I'll wait. Okay, thanks, Michael. I'll wait for that.
So I guess 2 questions for discussion. Are we ready to move this, and do we want to do more exploration on incentives? I'm inclined.
Do you want a motion to say something? To have someone put it on the floor for you?
I think we're just discussing it right now, and I think the next step would be to take this draft to the next level, and then that's something we could say, okay, we're going to bring this to zoning.
The deed restriction, if I may, definitely makes it quite a bit more complicated.
It wouldn't be mandatory, so the suggestion isn't not
Yeah,
mandatory,
that's
that it's an option.
Option.
If you put a deed restriction on it, then it goes from 30% of your footprint to 45%.
Sure, it's still just an option.
Yeah.
How about this? I mean, if you have an accessory unit that you're charging a rent for, presumably that increases the value of your property, wouldn't it? Yeah. So maybe there could be no increase of taxes, for the value, you know what I mean?
Or
if it's affordable.
Like an in-law apartment. I mean, it could increase the value without a monetary assessment. You could, families or in-law apartments, which...
That's what I'm thinking, mostly the in-laws.
Yeah, but there could be a lot of people who would like to do that. Next generation gets a property and agrees to build, and their parents downsize into an ADU. So, I mean, there's all sorts of neat stuff that comes out of it.
Yeah.
Not just making money.
I think
everyone socially accommodate your family.
Most people would want the opportunity to do it, whether they decide to do it or not. But I think the amnesty and the no increase in taxes are good ideas. And
It's a tax cap.
But how would you
You just get
how would
relief
you
for
word
the
that?
square footage of taxes that
Yeah.
it is, so.
For the incremental.
Yeah.
That's tough to word that part of the document, though. Like, how do you cap? Like, how do you cease an increase in taxes based on?
What if they do a
I know
renovation on their
exactly
how to do
home?
it. Like,
There's language.
yeah. It's just
I know
I
exactly.
like how the simplicity of the way it is now.
It's a process you used to do is you hire a lawyer and they tell them what you want to do and then come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do have language, but
Yep.
you need a lawyer, that's right. I like the idea, I always have.
John?
John, you still out there?
He's filing an application for ADU right now.
I never muted the line, so. Okay.
Just checking. All right, so.
All right, so
draft
I own this document.
or something.
I'll put a few more concepts in and when we'll take it forward. And at our October meeting, we'll have something, I'll put it in a form that we can, and in the meantime, I will get on the November agenda for zoning. And we'll have a talk.
And if you want any of us to come down, let us know when you're gonna go, so. Once they come
We
down,
will. Well, it'll be on the-
audience, if you need some support.
Definitely.
It was really fun.
Okay. So that's the more advanced of our thinking on regulatory change, but we got a nice kickstart from Rivercog with the inclusionary stuff. Let me punch that up. To the point where Megan actually had a slide presentation there on what some of the components are. And we also have some examples out there. I'm still somewhat amazed by this, but my old hometown of Ridgefield actually put an inclusionary zone there again. And it had some interesting provisions associated with it, and it was quite a discussion there. I know I felt my folks still live there, so.
The population is almost exactly Old Lyme. I left just 3 years ago.
Oh, really?
Huh?
7,200 versus 7,300.
Richfield? No.
We have, that's what the Census Bureau said, but because I just looked, I was curious. I mean, we have a lot more in the summer, I would think. But I don't know.
No, Richfield's more up like 20K, 25.
I thought so too, that's why I looked. I was shocked.
That doesn't match.
No.
I had more than that one. All right, we moved there in 62, so.
Maybe that was another one, maybe it was 1,700, but I just looked before I came, so that's
People
curious.
live in
Anyway,
Litchfield?
yeah.
But in any case,
In Ridgefield?
Ridgefield, yeah.
Small, I don't know. How big do you think it is then?
So,
so what we want to do is pick up on some of this and try to get kind of the same place where we are with ADUs, with inclusionary. Pop up the questions
this
I
would be less
had.
of an issue, I would think, then, because they already do something for open space and
Yeah.
as far as set aside.
And there's some really good examples. New Canaan is interesting as well. But you can see some of the dimensions that we're going to need. If we're going to come up with a proposal, I think we've got some decisions to make on what to put in that proposal, or and what approach we take with zoning is whether we start it even earlier in the process of the conversation and say what are their thoughts.
And this will correlate directly to the overlay. I mean, they correlate. Maybe not entirely match, but.
Yeah, although my understanding is, based on the minutes based on the latest FAQs, that one of the discussions that we want to have, a fork in the road, is whether we see this as being if we're going to propose regulations that apply to only certain districts or certain uses, or are we going to apply it town-wide? Now, my understanding is that the Halls Road Committee is including an inclusionary affordable housing provision in the next iteration of their proposal. But that would only be for the overlay district. It would not be for the town.
Yeah.
So when you look at a more basic form of inclusionary zoning, it basically says if you are creating a development greater than X number of units, then X percentage needs to be set aside as affordable. The next level of modifications to that are things like cash in lieu, or you can buy us off by putting money into an affordable housing fund, so that those funds can be used to create affordable housing somewhere else in town, or you can create affordable housing somewhere else in town. So it starts to branch out. I mean, the simplest form of inclusionary says you develop more than X units and Y% has to be set aside, and it grows branches from there.
Those other options do get very complex.
They do, and you can see in the
Especially in a small
New
town.
Canaan and the Ridgefield regulations both have examples of that.
Yeah.
New Canaan is actually pretty creative.
Yeah, I like what Ridgefield was too. I thought they had some great concepts there.
Yep.
There are a lot of things that are good. But to get back to your main question of, inclusionary zones being widespread or being more targeted, what would fit the plan of development and conservation? I mean, is there anything that the plan tells? Because, to implement the plan, that's how the zoning goes, but what's the plan of development say? Has it suggested certain areas of the city for different kinds of development or multifamily development?
Have not.
And I don't mean, it's not, I got you, I just don't know.
Yeah, it has not, and it'd be worth a read.
Yeah, I gotta read that, I know.
It does not, to the best of my recollection, contemplate any inclusionary. It just cites the general need and direction, but does not get into any geographical specificity or any policy specifics. So, I mean, imitation being the simplest form of flattery.
I think it's a great conversation with the planning commission.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
thanks. It's that bank you're looking at.
My eyesight falls off in the dark fast. Yeah, I like the idea of approaching not even plan of development and conservation, to see what they think from a planning standpoint, and be respectful, because it is a separate entity.
And given that it's affordable housing, then, we're the advisory body for that.
Yeah.
So here's a way we could approach it, is to just take some of these existing regulations that have some very interesting provisions and have clearly had a lot of work put into them. And actually, very importantly, if they have been adopted as code, that means it passed through the adoption process, which is a major hurdle. Mm-hmm. So somebody was able to get this through, which is a big deal. Mm-hmm. So we have the Ridgefield, we have New Canaan, there are others, and we have our friends at Rivercog, who have done even more diligence on this and have a sense. And I know from working with them that they would be happy to help us come up with a draft similar to the way that they helped us come up with the ADU proposal.
There is no inclusionary zones now, even not around Hall Road, right? That's contemplative?
It's their intent now to include it in the next iteration, is my
So it's
understanding.
contemplative, okay.
I think we need to first establish what our goal with the IZ is. Are we trying to, attract development, or are we trying to, add affordable units?
Increase housing.
Yes,
Yeah.
second thing.
So
Without-
we're not trying to attract large-scale or nor can we, given this lack of sewers. So that kind of moots the point itself. But.
Correct.
Just to keep it real, we've seen, others have seen, it's going to be a challenge to get a scale of development in this town that would even trigger an inclusion.
True.
I mean, Holes Road is a good example because they're actually planning on, in that area, to have higher density multifamily and mixed use. But in the rest of the residential districts that cover the vast majority of the area in town.
Right.
Yeah, you just have Button Ball and then 156 up by 95 and then Lord's Meadow.
I mean, where I live in Chestnut Hill and Peppermint Ridge, those were, 30 years ago, 20 to 30 years ago, and then you're not seeing that scale anymore.
No. I think that
They got about 40 lots.
the hidden objection is that there was an article in the paper about people, they use the term mission creep, which basically means you start off and things spread out in the context of sewers. Sewers are what develops intensely, and that's what they're nervous about in the town. And so it was an article, I can't remember what it pertained to, except that it put that out there, and people are going to read it. So I always like a targeted approach, because then people will know you can develop and you're going to stay off of water and sewer, and you're not going to open up an opportunity for things to creep in, because that's where your development is. Once you put that in, costs go up. It changes the character of any community or any area.
And to an extent, that's self-limiting. But to your question, Jim, I would say that I would propose that what we're looking for is to advance our brief for this commission, which is to increase the availability of affordable housing in town, and with realistic expectations that it's not likely to produce a groundswell of development, just to make sure. I mean, an analogy of this is what we do with open space. So if any development that crosses a threshold, a certain threshold is proposed, there has to be an allocation of open space with that, or cash in lieu, or, little known fact if you read the planning regulations, affordable housing.
Yep.
as an option, which has never, to my knowledge, been taken. So we want to raise awareness of that, but I think it's one of the tools that's out there.
Yeah, it's really the same thing as open space, like a subdivision.
It's a set-aside.
That's version.
So if a development exceeds a certain
Yeah, I forgot the
density,
threshold.
then
10 lots, or I forget what the threshold is.
there is some set-aside that's in the town's interest, whether that's open space, and I would propose that we add affordable housing to that.
Yeah, the problem with that as it's written now is that, like, these developments that are going up now, currently,
yeah.
they'll be more than happy to just give you a quarter acre of land.
Yeah,
and
that's
call it open
disconnected.
Space, which is in the middle of the neighborhood that
Yep,
you're not gonna
correct.
ever be able to access.
Correct.
So the neighbors in those 9-lot subdivisions will be very happy. They've got open space.
Or pay a fee
Yep.
Right,
that goes into the open space fund.
which is, I think, what.
So there is an analog of inclusionary zoning that's applied to open space. And it's a tool in the policy and regulatory toolbox that has not been implemented in Oline.
And, you know, the one on Button Ball in particular, just because I know that's better, but they're $1 million houses, right? And so.
And there's another one next to that.
$1 million houses going
And there's a new one
up there,
that was
and
just
there's
approved.
Zero, incentive for them to do, I mean, they couldn't even possibly build an affordable house in that mix of things. So that, what New Canaan does by providing money in lieu of that to a housing trust might be an option for those cases too.
And it's also in our affordable housing plan to bring this forward, to at least consider it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, what I'm trying to get is, I don't think it should be an option for them to either give open space or affordable housing, because they're always going to choose open space. It's
So
a
simple.
no-brainer.
Yeah.
So much simpler.
Simple.
So easy.
Yeah.
Get the tax break.
but if we have a consensus here that these concepts that have been collated so nicely by Rivercog and that have actually been adopted in towns like Litchfield and New Canaan, if there's consensus that those are models for something we might want to approach here, then now that we're sort of cresting the hill with ADUs, I would see that as the next frontier for policy and regulatory. But Fred, thoughts?
So, I'm just trying to get educated on what an inclusionary zone is, and how is that different from a developer coming in and say, well, you haven't met your 10%, I have this, I'm going to do this.
It's mandatory.
The inclusionary zone is...
Yeah, they're kind of the reverse of each other, yeah.
Yeah, they were designed in response years ago to court decisions about spot zoning. So they came up with this concept of inclusionary zoning in order to get around the court's decision that prohibited spot zoning. Because people say, you can put that kind of housing development on this 300-foot long frontage on Shore Road. That's spot zoning, and you know what spot zoning is. So that's where inclusionary zoning started. It was birthed in response to people wanting some flexibility to change the character and overlay one zone with another without it being caught up as spot zoning. And of course, it's a larger area, so it met the question.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you, see you next time.
I got one coming up.
So if you have a project that meets
It's also
inclusionary
meant to-
zoning, you're in.
It's also meant to capture some of the units that are created in larger developments for affordable housing, so that
It like automates it almost. If you have a large development, okay, well, going in,
15% is going to
15%,
be
2%, or whatever the percentage is, it could be
No, I
low,
think it's
high.
You can do your math, developments.
But it like automates it.
Right.
But we're unlikely to get much yield out of that, other than in the Halls Road.
Well, I see there's the Halls Road, but they're actually, my understanding, Ed, we'll see the proof has to come out in the pudding yet, but their intent is to, based on the feedback from zoning and our input, is to put inclusionary zoning, to put a floor percentage of affordable in there. Another potential opportunity for that is going to be the Shoreline Gateway. Now, that's not going to be anytime soon, but that's going to be another area where there might be mixed use. The book is going to be open on zoning regs. And I think these are the opportunities we want to take to make sure that consideration of affordable housing is included in those.
I also wonder if, if you start adding other components, like administrative components, like another housing trust fund or these other things that bigger towns can afford to run and feed, I wonder here if it's like how it could be used in the future or if it's even necessary.
It works though.
In larger towns where there's larger sums and larger components involved, but here I don't know.
I can give you an example. If we had 40 or 50,000 sitting in a fund, it would be a game changer for the McCulloch project.
Right.
Total game changer.
Doesn't take a lot of money, and people will buy into it.
It's 2 homes, but that's going to be on the razor edge of being affordable with the cost that they are, and 5 figures is meaningful.
Right.
But how do we administer it though? I'm saying we take the money from the development, it's housed in this fund.
Yep.
They write a check to the city and it goes into the special account. It's a set aside. It's really
that part's clear.
We have an open space fund that works out, so we have a model for it.
Open space, okay.
Yeah.
So there's precedented established models for how this works.
Yeah. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But heck, see what the developers think about it. The world will tell you eventually what they think.
I'd love to have $10,000 to put in the McCulloch project at this point.
That's right. Pretty soon we're going to write ourselves checks and do stuff here.
So it would make a difference.
Michael, can I just share one thing? The article about Mission Creek was candidate Jim Lampos. I don't know who he is, but they had the Oline candidates talking about sewers and sound view and transparency, and that appeared, I guess it was 9/18/23 in the Connecticut Examiner. So it's a very interesting article. We didn't read it about the candidate forum dealing with Mission Creek, sewers, sound view, Roger Lake's development. Let's put sewers out there. So you're certainly going to get a feel what the political community is thinking about it. And we're not politicians, but you still have to interface with them. Well, Jen's a politician. She gets elected.
One more meeting.
One more meeting.
Is that right? Someone,
Board of Ed.
that's what I thought. Yeah.
God bless you. I don't know how you do that over there, but...
All right, so
Okay.
So on that, just...
next step.
Just draft something up
Yeah.
like you did for the ADUs, something, a one-sheeter, one-pager kind of thing.
Yep, start to bring in some of the concepts, iterate on that within but I think that's the next frontier. And I'm happy to work on that. I've got the channel I got the channel into RiverCog too, so I could probably get, if it's not Torrance Downs again, somebody up there who may have done this before to help us draft it.
But
We
if
have
you
the
want to try
ritual.
that first, and then
Draft something. Yes, planning.
So,
Conservation, what they think.
who'd like to work with me on that one? I'm going to need some help.
I'll do it. If Amy's feeling good,
Amy,
Amy should do it.
You want to?
Yeah, I have the data, I just didn't bring with me from when we did contact all those towns.
This is for inclusionary, not for...
Sorry.
So we're going to reset, go back to square one with inclusionary.
Yeah.
Although at this point, RiverCog has done a lot of the front-end research for us, and we have that nice slide deck. And
I have time to do it if you want. Well, I can help you out.
Good. Yeah, I'm happy to just start to frame it, and we can iterate on it.
Yeah,
and
if we get
put it
to a
on the agenda.
one-page sheet, what we want to do.
Yeah, a term sheet.
Yeah.
and take it from there.
One-pager.
You said the floor to consider would be 4%. Did you mention that a minute ago? Sorry. I said, sorry.
No, I said an inclusionary regulation would just put a floor on how many.
You said 4%. Sorry. I must have misheard. I'm sorry. Sorry.
No, I think Ridgefield had 15%.
I think we want to start at a high number because
It's not gonna get bid up.
They're gonna knock it down to 10, to maximum.
14%.
I'm just guessing.
And I think some towns have done sliding percentages too. And, you know, if you bring in, and then, you know, to complicate it more, you bring incentives in. So you do 10, you get this. You do 15,
Right.
we sweeten the pot. You do 20,
Yeah. I'm a-
and I think there's an opportunity here too, conceptual, but there's an opportunity. So right now under 830G, a developer can come in and basically cause the town to have to focus only on health and safety considerations. The town can still reject it, but it gives them an appeal process to override some of the other provisions, whether that's setbacks, forms.
By design, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I can see a case where we want to maybe start at 30 and say, if you do 30, here's what we're willing to give up, and then slide it down from there to it's got to be at least 10 or 15. But to actually have some more collaborative, some more cooperative competition for 830G, where the developer will come in and decide what they want to do, where we can actually give some guidance in it up front to developers and say, you know, here are the areas. I don't know, Jim, what's your thought on that as a developer? Get some guidance on here's what the town is willing to flex on in order to.
So you don't do this option, which is the 830, not deter them from that, but to offer an alternative.
Just to have more of a collaborative avenue that doesn't take you down the more confrontational,
You can
adversarial.
easily model it because
And what is that called? Is this the inclusionary zoning, or is this?
Yeah, so the concept, and again, this is just a concept would
and
be,
it was 40 years to keep it affordable. That's cost, and you could, against any fees that you might pay or in lieu of, so you can model that. It's not hard, it'll be easy to do, it's mathematical.
so Fred's question, the concept would be, let's just say, we use the Ridgefield example, if you have a 15% minimum. If you have a development over X number of units, then you have to set aside 15%.
Correct.
If you set aside 20%, then the town is willing to relax minimum footprint or some density. If you go to 20%, you know, they'll throw in another.
And this is the whole town. It's not just the Halls Road, it's,
Could be, right.
oh, okay.
It won't be an overlay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we can talk about that more, but, all right. So the next step is,
Open space contributions.
yeah. So the next step would be just to draw on some of the research that Rivercog has done, some of the examples that we're getting from other towns, and just come up with something to start working on for a while.
Did you live in Ridgefield? I have to say one thing. They're just money people who wrote this. I just love this, you know, how they come up with the fees in lieu of, and then they have a density bonus. And, I mean, it's all about money. It's a fascinating document that's put together in Ridgefield. I agree.
All right. So we got a path forward, and Jen and Amy and I are going to work on that and come back. Okay, next meeting is on the calendar.
That would be,
I'm looking for my phone.
Like in your hand.
It's like I'm looking for my phone. It's just right in my head.
the 18th?
That sounds right.
It's always the third Wednesday, is that correct?
It's always the third Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yep, October 18th.
What about the Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
We have a double meeting on that day, just so you can't get away.
It's not the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's the
It's
fourth.
that's the
Yeah.
fourth.
15th, I'm sorry. Yeah,
15th.
Either one.
I look at that when I'm setting the annual calendar.
Except every 15th.
Now in December, we're meeting on the second Wednesday.
The 13th.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Okay.
So we're not going into Christmas week.
Okay. I better put that in my calendar.
All right.
We're all set. Cool. I got a chance, so you're not
Make
reading.
a motion.
To adjourn, Jen?
Somebody second me.
Second?
Are we staying here all night?
Well, I want to ask you a question.
Actually, I can summarily adjourn the meeting since we've come to the end of our agenda, but if someone would like to second, Jen.
We can't second, right?
No, we can't.
So it's got to be Amy or Fred.
Second.
Amy,
Second.
Last dying breath.
okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So now that we're off the record, I think
Is-
we all write in